Hey guys, welcome to another episode of The Litter Box. Usually these things are Patreon exclusive. Usually you have to pay $1 or more a month for them. But our moderator, Dr. Doom, said, why don't you do one? Just throw it out there for free and show everybody what these things really are, instead of relying on Jeremy's pretty awful description every week on Viewer Takeover. But what these things are is every single week we finally stop talking about video games for a few minutes. It's either me, Jeremy, Michelle, or Des, and we sit here in front of the camera or in front of our phone or whatever it is, and we take 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes every week, and we tell you a story. We answer questions. We tell you something personal about ourselves. The Litter Box can be pretty much anything we want it to be, and on some days like this, hopefully it's something you want it to be. So this week, I put it out there to everybody. Said, hey, let's do an AMA. Let's do an Ask Me Anything. Nothing off limits. As you guys probably know by now, my life is pretty much an open book. But let's keep it Halloween themed. Let's stay in the spooky season. We've only got a few days left, which I got to tell you is not making me very happy. Before I knew it, like October was pretty much gone. We've only got like two days left of October, I think, and that's really sad. So this is our kind of big Halloween celebration. A bunch of you guys wrote in with questions for me to answer, and let's just get to it, because these videos, I talk too much. I really do. These videos go on way too long. And if you like what you see and you want to see more of this, just head on over to patreon.com/withoutparolegames and throw us $1 a month. That's it. So Dr. Doom, our moderator, starts off the AMA and asks. He says, okay, 2 questions. Do you believe in ghosts or aliens? And if so, do you have any scary experiences you could share with us? Well, Dr. Doom, yeah. I mean, I pretty much believe in everything. Ghosts is a weird one, because I think no one wants to really accept death as like the be all end all for life. I think most of us hope that there's an afterlife of some kind, whether you believe in religion or not. Like, that's not the issue. It's just we hope there's something more, right? And if you've been paying attention, if you know anything about my life, which means you've probably been watching these episodes if you do, I've lost a lot of really important people in my life. I've lost countless friends to family, of course, way too young, and I had. Won't go into the details, right? But one of the closest people in my entire life is now gone, and it makes me feel better to think they're still here, like in my apartment somewhere, right? Haunting my apartment. So I've always believed in ghosts because, I mean, come on, the X-Files, and aliens because, come on, the X-Files. So I've got 2 brief stories, because again, this is just the first question. We have a long way to go. As far as aliens go, I was really young. I remember being in a car with 2 of my cousins. They were only like a year or 2 older than me, so we were all very young. I want to say I was like maybe like 6, 7. They were like 8, 9 kind of thing, and we're in the backseat of a car. When I was younger, our extended family was a lot closer. We'd see them a lot more often. So my cousins on my dad's side, we'd often get together as a family and go out to this pizza place, or I don't know if it was Italian or if it just did pizza or what it was, but we'd only get pizza. 2 restaurants, Francesco's and Teresa's, and they were like sister restaurants. So like they looked almost identical from the outside. Even the sign in front was like almost identical. And you walk in and it's very similar. So I have some recollection of going to these restaurants, but totally incapable of differentiating the 2. But they had these gigantic pizzas that would take up almost the entire table. And man, when those things showed up, I mean, I love pizza. Why was I telling you this? Because I rode home with them instead of my family for some reason. And on the car ride home, it was late at night, and we were just driving these long stretches of road, through the country. And I just remember this one road in particular where we looked out at night and there's a huge, huge field to our left. And it was almost like the clouds opened up. I kid you not, right? And there was a beam of light that shone down, and something looked like a little flying saucer was just going so slowly up this beam of light into the clouds. And all three of us saw it. We all were like, do you see that? What is that? And it's just way off in the distance, but clear as day. And that was it. And I was like, holy crap, I think we just saw a UFO like ascend into the heavens. Unbelievable, right? And you know, and anytime I see anything on TV, like, I know there's been a lot of fake stuff, but I believe most of it. Like, why wouldn't there be? If there's not, it would be really strange if we were the only people in, or beings in the entire universe. That would just be too crazy to think, right? And I believe in all the conspiracy theories where like the government knows about the aliens and, Roswell Area 51, all that stuff. And I'm sure that the government is like test flying all of this experimental, alien craft and stuff too. So the UFOs that we probably see, it might not be aliens flying them. It might be our own government, but we get the technology from somewhere. We got way off topic. Ghosts. So I remember one night I was in my apartment. And actually in this studio where we film now, this used to be my bedroom, and now I don't have a bedroom. So my bed was against this back wall, and I had a couple of, if you ever saw the old episodes, very, very old episodes with the big white stools on Gaming Without Parole, on those white stools, those were kind of pushed up against the wall, and there's just musical instruments all over the place here. There's like a mandolin just laying there, right? And so whoever I was dating at the time, we were sleeping in the middle of the night, right? And woke up to this horrific sound, like a big boom, like a scary movie sound, right? Like that, like couldn't be created in real life. And you wake up, you hear that in the middle of the night, and you sit up with a start. It's like someone orchestrated the scariest event in my life, and it took us a second to figure out what it was. But what it was, the mandolin had somehow fallen off of those stools onto the ground and made this horrific sound. Now, that, like, you'd be like, oh, well, it fell off somehow. Well, there was absolutely no way this thing would have fallen off. It had been sitting there for probably years, right? Just untouched. No, it wasn't off balance of any kind. Like, it made no sense. And I have reasons to think that it was a ghost. But again, this is already running long, and I could go on about this haunting forever. I feel like I've had firsthand experience with ghosts and firsthand experience with aliens. Not abducted, just the thing in the distance thing. Enough to be like, yeah, okay, it's all out there. It's happening. So yeah, that was our first question. Holy crap, this is going to take forever. Second, Chris White. Chris White asked, have you ever left a hotel, motel, or another person's house because it was too scary? Yeah, I did. Again, I was real young, and I was hanging out with my best friend, Andrew. Now, Andrew's mad cool, right? Like, he and I had all the same interests as a kid. Like, we played Genesis and Game Gear and computer games together, and we'd, like, stay up all night and have, like, little adventures and stuff through the house and outdoors and stuff. He was, like, the coolest best friend you could have as a kid. But we were both into, like, kind of scary things, and not, like, scary things like heroin. It was like scary things, like we watched the first episode of the X-Files together, like that kind of scary things. But like, I think I dove into that stuff a little too early in my life. So I remember one day I was hanging out with him and his family, and I was supposed to spend the night at his house, and it started getting late, and I forget where we were, but on the drive back home to his house, I remember he was telling me a story about this haunted house on his street. That was like, we drove by all the time. Like, I knew the house he was talking about, and it was only, like, you could see it from his house. And he was saying it was haunted, and his parents were, like, backing up his story and stuff. Like, talking about how, somebody died there, and how if you take a tour of the house, there's cold spots. And he was just telling me all of these stories, and I can't remember really any of them, except it freaked me out so much to the point where I remember we got back to his house, and I was like just petrified. Like, I couldn't even think straight. Like, And at a certain point, after like my brain started processing everything, I just started crying. And his parents were like, "What's wrong?" And I was like, "I need to go home." And because I think I was just, as far as distance, like I said, like you could see this haunted house from the end of his driveway. Like we were that close to it, and I was like, I can't be here. Like this is just too much. So I remember my parents I was so embarrassed. My parents had to come in the middle of the night to come pick me up. It wasn't far. I mean, we lived on like the other side of the road or something, not like just probably a couple miles down the road. I mean, but it was just so embarrassing to be like that. The thought of this is too much for me to handle. And I think whenever you see Des and I like talking about scary things and about how he doesn't really get scared of things, I've always been very susceptible to all of this obviously from a very early age, and as I grew up, like I really started enjoying it. Like, as a kid, I couldn't handle it, and like again, I matured very late as a kid, but I really started enjoying the inability to handle scares, like the fact that it was just so intense, and it still is to this day. Resident Evil 7, just too intense from beginning to end, but I forced myself to play it because I enjoy the inability to like separate myself from fiction, or to separate myself from the scary factor of it all. Like I just internalize all of it, and it just like explodes. Like it's intense, man. It's one of those few feelings, like as you get older, it hasn't really faded, which is fantastic, because you remember your first love and how intense it was, and you remember the first time you did a bunch of things, how intense it was. But this is one of those things where like scary things still impact me almost the same as it was when I was a kid. And I think that's why I hold on to like Halloween and scary movies and scary video games so much, because they're so intense, and like they've never lost their impact for me. We're going to skip some people's second questions, so I apologize if you wrote in and I'm not covering your entire question. But again, I'm talking way too much, so I apologize. Mark Adams wrote, "What's the best thing you ever dressed up for What's the best thing you ever dressed up as for Halloween?" Mark, I don't really get into the whole dressing up thing, and I'll tell you why. Because I have all of these like huge ideas months ahead of time. And I'm like, that would be great. Like, you and I should dress up like this, and we'll go together as blah, blah, blah. And, and it just never pans out. Like, I'm always so busy. And I've always got all these other things I want to do. Like, even before the YouTube channel, it was like, I get very passionate about like one or two things, and I just stick with those, and like, I just don't let go. So like, somehow, Halloween costumes I've had a million ideas for, and then I just never follow through with them. I remember as a kid, I dressed up as a cat when I was real young, which makes total sense now. And it was like a full body thing. It was like almost like this like nylon-y, like almost spandex type thing that clung to my body, which was kind of weird. Especially as a kid, it was all sorts of weirdly shaped. And like, I think it kind of came up over my head, and I had little whiskers and stuff. That was like my first costume I can remember ever dressing up as. But I will say that the most embarrassing one was, I think I was in like 5th grade, and there was like this whole zombie like face makeup like kit, right? Like I would get the whole thing, and like it's like this clay stuff that like stuck to your face, and like you kind of like made it look like rotting flesh, and it was just like you had all these colors you could add to it, and it was like a big deal, and I was so excited. Like I think my parents picked it up for me, and I was like so excited, like and I applied it all before school, and something horrible happened. It started to smell, and it started to smell really bad, like to the point where other kids were like, "What's that smell?" And I got wicked self-conscious, and I was like, holy crap, my face paint it smells as bad as it looks. And this wasn't like the greatest, like, I applied all this stuff myself, so it wasn't even the best looking zombie thing. And I remember having to go into the bathroom in the middle of the day during school and try to wash this stuff off. Even worse, this must have been the cheapest stuff on the face of the planet, because it was legit stuck to my face. Like I was peeling it off, and it was like my skin was coming off with it. Like it was really bad. So like I'm like scraping it off with my fingernails in the bathroom, and again, probably crying because I was an emotional kid, and just, I mean, what a fucking wreck. Just ridiculous. So not the best thing I ever dressed up for is Halloween, but just a stupid story for sure. In college, I went as a dead raver, which was just my normal raver clothes because I was a stupid candy raver. And if you're a candy raver, all the power to you, man. Like I went through a lot of phases in life, and man, the candy raver phase, I can't believe I survived that. But man, yeah, I like all these Adidas clothes and like the big raver pants and in the tight shirts and all the bracelets and stuff oh my god, everything like was brightly colored and flashed lights and whatever. So I just took my normal raver clothes and got all decked out, and then just squirted blood everywhere. And I went as a dead raver. I'm sure there were some like big black X's over my eyes and stuff like that too. Yeah, I never put too much thought into these things. And of course, after the 5th grade zombie thing, I think I was probably scarred for life. Thank you, Mark. I appreciate the trip down memory lane. All right, Justin Sadowski. What's up, Justin Sadowski? If any one scary movie could be made into a full-fledged AAA PlayStation VR video game, imagining that it could be the best possible version of that game, given the capabilities of PlayStation VR, what movie would you choose, and how much money do you think you'd be willing to spend on it? The how much money would you be willing to spend on it question is something we keep getting. And I want to say Jay Dow was the one who sent it to us earlier, but Justin, I think the thing is like I'm constantly surprised when games don't cost more than $60. Like we hit a very long streak of time where games were like $40 and $50 and now $60, and I know games sell more than they ever have been, but games are also more expensive to make than they ever have been. And I'm a little surprised that we haven't hit that $70 price point yet, but I think that's going to price too many people out of the market. So for a question like this, I'm like, for a one-time only deal, like, you know, here and there, if the game is that good and something that like I'm willing to play over and over again, you know, I mean, I would absolutely spend like $100 if it's worth it. Sirens. There's sirens and no one to play rock, paper, scissors, slap with. But to really answer your question, I think, I would have said Paranormal Activity, but we got a Paranormal Activity game. And I feel like that could have been better. It's a good game, but there's like 5-6 of those movies, something like that. And they really could have made that game much longer and much more involved. Yeah, I'm sure the development costs were like too much and stuff, but so I'm going to choose something different. I'm going to choose something totally different, and you got to stick with me here. Child's Play. I love Child's Play. Child's Play was an early scary movie series that I got into. I remember having the first few on VHS tape. I was like super duper into Chucky, the whole Charles Lee Ray mythos. I thought that was phenomenal. I don't think it was like especially well written, but I think the first 3 movies were phenomenal. It got real campy after that. You know, they really played up like Chucky's relationship, and it was kind of silly. But the first 3 movies, if they made a PlayStation VR game about the first 3 movies, where you're like a parent or the kid, what's the kid's name? Andy? Is that right? I don't remember. But if you're the kid and you get Chucky, the Chucky doll for your birthday or something, and then is it Alex? What the hell's this kid's name? I don't remember. Anyway, so you're the kid in the from the first 3 movies, and you get Chucky as a present, and then like I think it would be cool to kind of like live in PlayStation VR through a few of his days, and then seeing like kind of weird things that happen, right? Like see Chucky like run across like the out of your peripheral, just like you see him running. And you're like, was that? Did I just see what I thought I saw? That kind of thing, right? So it's like the scares kind of build, and you know, and eventually, you know, you could turn it into like a thing where like you actually have a knife or something to defend yourself, or you find your parents' gun, and you can turn it into like a first person, like Resident Evil style survival horror game. I feel like it could be really well done, and you know, and Chucky's always kind of been able to like just kind of show up when he wants to. because he's small, so he sort of can hide in small places. So I don't know exactly how I'd want that to play out, but it sounds like it would be a really fun game, and really to be able to play as a kid who's fairly defenseless and almost the same height as Chucky. I think that'd be a lot of fun. I kind of lost interest in all the Child's Play movies after 3. I know that the most recent one was The Curse of Chucky, and I think they kind of tried to bring it back a little bit, which was interesting to see. I think it was the best one since 3. But yeah, I don't know. That series kind of fell off a cliff. Thanks, Justin. I appreciate the question. Next up is Hannibal NS. Hannibal NS writes, "Hey Bryan, how about an example of your most prolific Halloween-related shenanigans as a youth, or even better, as an adult? I know that you mentioned that your mom watches the show, but try to be pseudo-honest. Winky face. Cheers." Hannibal NS. My mom does watch the show. In fact, after our PlayStation VR on LSD episode of Viewer Takeover, I woke up to a text message from my mother. She wanted to make sure that everything was okay and that I'm not doing drugs. I'm not doing drugs. So I'll probably have to answer for this one too. I'll probably be getting a text message tomorrow, but I will say that I didn't have like an awesome like big group of friends or anything to go out and do like Halloween hijinks with and like go toilet paper houses and that kind of thing. I never really did that. I was always kind of a good kid. But I will say, as far as like Halloween related events that I took part in, besides the aforementioned raves, I went to school up near Salem, Massachusetts, and obviously Salem's got an awesome as far as like creepy history goes. So there were definitely times that we headed into Salem for Halloween, and what they do there is they block off like a big part of the city, and so you can't drive through it. It's just like thousands of people walking around in costume and just roaming around and just having a good time. There's like little shops open and stuff, and it's a total blast. And I will tell you something about thousands of people in costume. Nobody's sober, and on acid, it's absolutely insane. My what I remember most about walking around, the one time I'm thinking of specifically, walking around Salem, all sorts of messed up, was the Jackson 5. There was a group of people walking around. They had like the big boombox on their shoulder, playing Jackson 5 music, and they all had like the choreographed dances going on. And man, they were like the soundtrack to my whole night. Like no matter where we went, the Jackson 5 was always there. Like we'd like walk into a little shop and like we seemed to be all by ourselves, and then boom, the Jackson 5 would come walking on in with the boombox music, the dance moves, and it was just like, I mean, at first it was like weird, and then it was just like hysterical. Every single time we saw them, we were just like, there they are again. Like they were the soundtrack to that whole evening. It was a really good time. It sort of wasn't a good time later on in the night, but that's a whole nother story for a different time. Let's see. B Tribble writes 2 questions. We'll see if we get to both of them. You mentioned earlier your early experience with the movie Halloween. What was your reaction to Halloween 3? I think everyone had the same reaction to Halloween 3, and even though I discovered those movies later than when they came out, because I don't know if I was born yet. Maybe. Yeah, but I wasn't old enough to watch them yet, that's for sure. Halloween 3, obviously, I got that for VHS. I don't know if it was like a present, but I got it on VHS tape. I don't know if it's from my parents or what the deal was. But, my parents had given me the very first Halloween on VHS tape. And so I slowly discovered how many more Halloween movies there were. And I was like, well, I got to get all of these things. And so by the time I got to 3, I was super excited to see the continuing story of Jamie Lee Curtis and Michael Myers, Laurie Strode, of course. And I put it in. I remember just seeing it was the one about the factory that made the Halloween masks, and just waiting for Michael Myers to show up. I mean, like, when the hell is he going to show up? And I think I waited pretty much the entire movie for him to never show up, which scared the crap out of me. I was like, holy crap, is Halloween 4 going to be like another one of these? Or is it going to get back on like the whole Michael Myers train? Luckily, as we all know, it totally got back on the Michael Myers train. But 3 is interesting because I've watched 3 numerous times, and not lately, not probably even in the last decade, but I've watched it a bunch of times. And I gotta say, it's not a bad movie, but it is a bad Halloween movie. I don't know. I gotta say, I give credit to whoever made that movie. I don't know who was involved in it, to be honest with you, because I think at a certain point you start wondering, you're like, with all these, you say, is Michael Myers a character that can stand the test of time? We did 2 movies with this scary dude, but is 3 movies going to be too much? Do we need to try something new? Will every Halloween movie be like a different new story? And I think that's what, if it was successful, that's probably what they would have done. They would have just kept creating new characters and creating new situations. But instead, I'm sure it didn't go over well. And so they brought Michael Myers back. So I give him credit for trying something new, because just doing the same thing over and over again doesn't work out so well. I will say, though, that the very first time I saw a trailer for Halloween H2O 20 years later, I want to say around the time I was like 16 years old, and starting to go to the movies with my friends quite a bit, and like hanging out and getting out of the house and like taking mom and dad's car. And so I remember seeing a trailer for Halloween H2O and being like, holy crap, like there's going to be a Halloween movie in the theater and I'm old enough to watch it. Like it was so exciting for me. And I will say that Halloween H2O at the time, I don't know if it's held up. That movie was phenomenal. Really enjoyed that. And especially seeing it in the theater. That was really cool. Other question. Okay. We'll let you use your second question, B Tribble, because why not? That makes me feel bad now. We didn't read Chris White's second question. All right, we're running so long. What are your favorite and least favorite Halloween candies? I always hated getting Tootsie Rolls. Personally, I actually liked Smarties for some reason. I'm trying to think. Is there any Halloween candy I don't like? Yeah. Mounds and Almond Joy. Ugh. I've never liked those. The little fun-sized candy bars. Mounds and Almond Joy are like the devil. And I don't know if they both taste like coconut or what the deal is, but I don't like coconut at all. And it's been so long since I've had them, I don't know. Sometimes you feel like a nut, sometimes you don't. Almond Joy's good nuts. Mounds don't, because. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of almonds either, and I've actually got an almond allergy. Yeah, I don't like those. I do like, and I especially like getting the double pack, like the normal one you buy in the store yourself, Reese's Peanut Butter Cups. Man, like that, those things scream Halloween. I mean, the colors alone are orange and dark brown, I guess. And so the fact that they even sell outside of Halloween is amazing, but they're awesome. Oh man, and especially if like you can find the time to throw them in the freezer ahead of time. So good. So good. Yeah. Oh, also candy corn. Candy corn's really surprising to me that I like that, because it's just like super sugary sweet. But candy corn's really good. But I have an issue with candy corn. This is gonna take forever. The candy corns that I grew up with were white on top and then yellow and then orange on the bottom. And somewhere along the line, some of them became white on top, yellow, and brown. Who the hell wants to eat brown? It's gross. Like, they don't taste any different, I don't think, but candy corn should be white, orange, yellow. I don't remember which order they go in now, but that's what candy corn should be. Come on. Get your shit together. And also, God, just thinking about candy corn makes me feel like I have a cavity. My teeth fucking hurt. Ivano, or Ivano, Ivano. Sorry, dude, I don't know how to pronounce people's names. I want to know your opinion on the It movie and Stranger Things, whether you saw season 2 or not. Okay, he's got like 3 questions here. So real quick, we're going to skip your second question, but we're going to do your first and third one. You guys should know my opinion on the It movie already. On the weekly wrap-up, at one point, I talked about the It movie. I went on a rant. Some of you agreed with me, some of you didn't. It was a fine movie, all right? It was a little strangely paced, but it wasn't scary. And this is labeled as a horror movie. The reviews talked about it as if it was the scariest thing ever made. When I watched the miniseries as a kid, the original, it scarred me for life. And here I was thinking that we're here, 27 years later, math, and here these people, the people who made the new version of Stephen King's It, had the benefit of the book having been out for a long time, unlike the miniseries. I don't think the book had been out for a long time at that point. Also, they obviously also had the benefit of watching the miniseries, seeing something that was very successful and scared a lot of people for their entire lives. And they had the benefit of time, right? They had all of these things, and they had the benefit of making a rated R movie, which I'm sure you can do a whole lot more with than a miniseries. Wasn't scary. Some people talked about like the CG and how bad the CG was. I didn't even notice that because I was too busy being bored. I was too busy being not scared. And I went with a couple people who should have been very scared because they're even bigger scaredy cats than I am, and they were bored out of their minds too. It's a movie that I'm glad I saw, but it's not something I loved because it wasn't scary. And that was the entire point of going, was to be scared. We already knew the story. It was time to be scared again. Stranger Things. I think Stranger Things is great. I think Stranger Things is also a little overrated. I have not watched season 2 yet. I started episode 1 of season 2 the other night and I went, stop. Just stop. This is something I need to pay attention to. Like I turned it on and I was only half paying attention and I was like, nope, I need to like take a day and not make any videos and not like write any scripts and not do any of this like, PlayStation VR stuff and just marathon all of season 2 and just give it my full attention with a pizza or two. Pizza helps your attention span. It really does. So maybe that'll happen this week. But Stranger Things season 1, again, I think it was strangely paced or oddly paced. But it was good. It wasn't fantastic. It was good. I like the setting, the 80s. It felt very, it had that Stand By Me vibe. Actually, it had a Stand By Me vibe as well. This like awesome group of friends that stuck together and like had to help each other, that kind of thing. It's good, and I'm very excited to see season 2 because I've heard it's even better than season 1. So we'll see. I know that's not a horribly detailed opinion on it, but I also haven't watched it in like, what was it, a year ago the first season came out. So maybe we'll talk a bit more about it as I get through season 2. And then the other question Ivano asked is, what is the thing they should do to horror adventure VR games that still no game has really ever done? I saw this question before I went to work, and it sort of like mulled around my brain the entire time I was at work tonight. And I'll tell you this. The first thing I could think of was that amazing battle with Psycho Mantis in Metal Gear Solid 1, when at some point he goes, "I see you like Castlevania." And they only knew that because they were reading the memory card that was stuck in that had your Symphony of the Night save game file on it. But no one's really ever done anything like that again. So I'm thinking to myself, like, how crazy would it be if, let's just say, Paranormal Activity, The Lost Soul, or Don't Knock Twice, or whatever, could access information from your, like, so my PlayStation 4 profile is linked to my Facebook, right? Because signing in is just so much easier. Anytime you can click that, sign up with Facebook button, it's just so much easier. It's one less password to remember. It's one less thing you got to worry about. So my Facebook and my PlayStation 4 network profile are linked. I was saying to myself, how cool would it be if, I'm sure this is totally illegal, but if some developer was able to like use that information to, like, say you're walking around the Don't Knock Twice house, right? And you hear a whisper. And you hear your name. You hear, Bryan. You're like, did somebody just say my name? And you like take off your headphones and you're like, hello? Is anyone there? You put it back on. You walk, a couple minutes later you hear, Bryan. Like, somebody really just said my name, right? How creepy would that be? And you, obviously you could get the same effect without like the Facebook link, just by putting your name in at the beginning of the game. but also like even creepier stuff, like, you know, you're walking down a hallway and you like glance at a picture frame that's sitting on like a table, and it's like your dead grandmother, like your actual dead grandmother or your living grandmother, I don't know, whatever. And you look away and you're like, wait, was that my grandmother? And you look back and it's something different, and you're like, just for a second, you're pretty sure you saw a picture of your dead grandmother on a table in a video game. Like, these are things that, like, since everything's connected, it's possible, but again, probably totally illegal. But I would love it if somebody was able to take that Psycho Mantis Metal Gear Solid 1 hack, quote unquote, to like the next level and really mess with your brain. So developers, free ideas. That would be awesome. I'd love to hear somebody whisper my name in a video game. Bryan. Creepy as all hell. I would never sleep again. 1, 2, Freddy's coming for you. Mikey Diaz. Mikey, my boy Diaz. He writes, so 2 questions. Which, dude, we're skipping one of them. I'm so sorry. This is running so long. Getting this up for midnight is going to be a chore. I do love all of you guys, and so I just want to thank you before I finish this for bearing with me and dealing with my horrible work schedule and everything else. I've got no time ever. Mikey, his first question was about foreign horror movies, and I feel like at one point in my life I could have answered more questions about foreign horror movies. But honestly, as I've gotten older, I used to watch only subtitled. That was the rule. Only subtitled movies, or subtitled anime. Like, I needed the original voices. And as I've gotten older, I've A, cared a whole lot less about that, and B, I don't want to read subtitles while I watch a movie anymore. Like, that's just not something I can handle. Because I'm either distracted or I'm tired. I'm always tired. But so I can't answer your question about foreign horror movies because it's been years since I've even like looked into them. But the second question was, in the realm of haunted walkthroughs and scare factory type attractions, I think he's Scare Factory. Haunted walkthrough Scare Factory. We've got one in town here called the Factory of Terror. Which has been the most intense and immersive attraction you've experienced to date, and what's made it the most effective? I will tell you that I used to go to Witch's Woods almost once a year. They've got like 4 or 5 haunted houses there and a few carnival rides. It's nothing crazy. It's kind of small, but it's fun. They've got a cool haunted hayride. I think those were pretty well done, especially, and even like the Factory of Terror here in Worcester. It's literally, they call it 5 haunted houses, but they're all interconnected to the point where like you almost can't distinguish the one you were just in from the next one you started. Excuse me. It's like a 20-minute thing, and I think it's like $25, but it's good. Like I feel like they take it seriously. Like the actors there are really good. And Des and I recently went to Six Flags Fright Fest, and that was horrible. Right? Like, those are just like kids that don't care about anything. Like, it's pretty bad. It's pretty rough. And if you work there, I'm really sorry. This is the one in Agawam. It was, I don't know. We waited in some really, really, really long lines for very little. Is I guess the problem. The payoff wasn't worth the wait. But I think the Factory of Terror here in Worcester is awesome, and I do think that Witch's Woods is pretty great. I haven't been in probably 2 years now, but I used to go all the time, and every year it was fantastic. But I don't think it has as much to do with the attraction itself. I think it has a lot to do with the people you surround yourself with. I used to go with, oh God, I had a small group of people I would go with, and they were very easily scared. I'll put it that way. And so we'd be like hiding behind each other as we walk through the haunted house. Like, who's going to be the brave one? Who's going to walk in front? And it's like sometimes somebody would be the brave one, and but then lose their nerve, and they'd have to like hide behind somebody else. And then we'd all be like, we'd be walking through these haunted attractions like we were children. Like we were just like, again, we just let our guard down because it's so much fun to be scared. But then I went with Des to Fright Fest. As you're all well aware, Des does not scare easily. He calls himself broken. I don't know if that's the case or not, but he's certainly he's certainly not scarable, right? He's seen it all, and he just something doesn't click in his brain where things scare him. So I was with him and his wife Amanda, and I thought Amanda was going to be, super scared, and she and I could do the whole but none of us were really scared. And so I think it's kind of it's a combination of who you go with, and also on top of that, how good the attraction is. I love going with other people who are going to get scared, and then we can all get scared together and act like silly, because we have just proven that we're incapable of acting like adults in scary situations, which is fantastic. That's what the season, that's what the scary movies, that's what the scary video games and the attractions are all about. That's it. We made it. I can't believe it. To the end of another AMA. So usually these videos don't go on that long. So I don't want to try to get, any of the non-Patreon supporters to be like, hey, I'm going to get like a half an hour video every single week. Usually it's like 5-10 minutes. I just want to let you know what you're actually in for. But what I really want to say is thank you guys so much, because for our regular viewers, for our Patreon supporters, what Without Parole has always been about video games. Video games first. Like, we just love video games, period. And so any way to cover video games, like the reviews and let's plays and podcasts, like just anything, any way to discuss video games and have some kind of outlet where video games can be like shown as our passion. That's all this was supposed to be. And as we grew into something a little bit more, right? The Without Parole Games family. Me, Jeremy, Des, and Michelle. And so it's become so much more than just video games. It's become like some amazing, amazing friendships, people I absolutely love. And what I didn't expect on top of that was thousands of people who cared about the people who were talking about the games too. Like the Litterbox isn't really about games. Litterbox is about the people making the videos, the people on the podcast, people writing the reviews. It's about us. And this is sort of a strange side effect to the whole growth of PSVR Without Parole. And that's phenomenal. I really can't express how much I appreciate you guys telling us daily how much you care about us. It means so much. But you've probably heard all this before. You probably hear it every single week, when we finish off the podcast or finish off the Litterbox episodes. So I'm not gonna go over all this stuff that we've said a million times before, but I never want anyone to feel unappreciated. The fact that you guys subscribe, the fact that you watch is more than enough. Patreon, it's a bonus. That's for people who can support us. That's for people who want to support us. And I'm actually just really thrilled that I could do this episode this week for everybody. It's nice to have a small group of people that I can share this with, but it's always nice to share it with even more. So that's it. That's another episode of the Litterbox. Starting next week, they'll be Patreon exclusive again. Thank you so much for watching and supporting. I love you all.